Hello, everyone, and welcome to the APBP Chapter Chat. We are joined today. Well, my name is Lauren Magnol. I am the Program Manager for APBP, and we've also got Maddie Brosen, the Membership Committee Chair, and Connor Semler, who is the Co-Chair as well, on the call today. We're gonna kick it off with walking through some slides to kind of give you an outline of what chapters are all about and how they're structured, and kind of walk through a couple of things. And during that time, if you have questions as we're going through the PowerPoint, feel free to use the question tab, which should be in your little control panel on the right side. You can submit a question, and when we get through the PowerPoint, we'll kind of field those questions one-on-one. After we get through the PowerPoint, we will open it up for any additional questions that you may have, and then if we have time at the end, we'll open up all the phone lines and allow everyone to share ideas or talk about what their current chapters are doing, or if you're interested in starting a chapter that's not already formed, that'll be an opportunity to talk directly with any of the chapter members that are on the call today. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Connor to get us started.
Right. Thanks, Lauren. And thanks, everyone, for joining the call. We've been, as the membership committee, we've been working hard at trying to think about how to provide better guidance and be a better resource for the chapters that are emerging, and we're really excited about the way things are moving, and looking forward to working together with some of you early adopters as we move along. So we have a few slides here to walk through, but like Lauren said, we're going to try and reserve a lot of the time today for discussion, both so you can ask questions and bounce ideas off of us, and also to talk directly to each other. We acknowledge and recognize that some of the best information is coming from the chapters on the ground and their experience, and so I want to let you all have a chance to talk. So we'll walk through how APBP is thinking about organizing the chapters and structure, a little bit about the web and email management, some discussion on local chapter activities, and then, as I said, talking about the idea swap. So with that, I think we'll go into it. And Lauren and Maddie invited them to speak up and chime in if there's anything to add as we're going along. Maddie, do you want to say hi before we get started?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the call. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend today. We really appreciate your patience as we've been trying to work on chapters. And so on behalf of the membership committee and one of our committee members who kind of put together this presentation, thank you very much. And hopefully this will help to give some guidance and to just kind of start a dialogue between chapters as well.
Right. All right. So I think in the audience today we have a mixture of people at different points in the process. Some of you may just be thinking about starting a chapter. I know one chapter application was just submitted yesterday, and others of you are a little bit more established. So we'll try and keep this general. For some of you, this information might be a little bit, further at different points of your process. But bear with us through that. Right. So at this point, we're targeting folks who are right at the start, the initiation process, and what happens next. So the first thing to get kicked off is to get membership, local chapter membership. And we have a few ideas here about how best to get that started. The APBP membership database is a great place to start by looking for members, and it's all geocoded for the most part with where the members are located. So depending on your particular geography, you can do a catchment around a certain area or region and target members within whatever radius you're looking for, and they can be the beginning point of your membership, contacting them with an email blast and to figure out who's interested in participating or helping to organize your local chapter. Lots of local chapters have then had success with sort of informal gathering with those people who are most interested. You know, oftentimes these chapters start with a conversation among, you know, people who already know each other and others who have expressed interest. So, you know, start with a brainstorming informal gathering. We've seen success with other local professional organizations. For example, local chapters of APA or ITE have existing communication rosters and email lists that could be tapped into. There's other organizations that are related, like YPT, Young Professionals Transportation, or some of the more targeted professional interest groups, ULI, et cetera. From all this, you really want to identify a steering committee, a leadership group of champions from your initial meetings. And this is really important. These are the people that are going to sustain the momentum and actually walk away from the first meetings and do stuff. Organize emails, organize activities, and things like that. The success of a chapter really falls on or depends on the active leadership in this area. And one suggestion is to start a Google group for future communication. Of course, every individual chapter could do that in the way that they prefer. So moving on from there, it's important up front to be in touch with APBP headquarters. There's a couple of principal things that need to get established. One is a chapter webpage. APBP will facilitate you having a web page with a wall and messaging capabilities. And then we've had success with MailChimp. I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar with that, but the MailChimp account allows up to 2,000 email addresses for free and is a good way to get some consistency and organization among the email list. It's important that APBP is kept involved through this, so we're asking at a minimum to include the email address info@apbp.org on all communications. This will allow Lauren and the membership committee to stay up to date and keep tabs on what all the different local chapters are doing. And then we also want to know what's going on so we can be broadcasting activities and local goings on through our This Week at APBP newsletters and other sorts of group communications.
So yeah, so you want to go back real quick?
Yeah,
so there's a number of different ways. I mean, I think it's easiest for us to stay apprised if things go on the web page, because that can be a really great landing site for everyone. As you see, like there's kind of what we don't want to force everyone to have to post multiple times. So something goes to your Google group and then to your chapter web page and then the MailChimp. But the idea is to say there's a number of resources out there to how to communicate. And we understand that the web page has kind of limited capabilities in terms of formatting and making kind of posts that are really nice looking and attractive to get more people involved. But the really key thing is to whatever kind of venue you choose. Ideally, if it could be the chapter web page and something else. But really including the info@apbp for everything, that's really kind of the most important thing with whatever venue you decide to choose.
Thanks, Maddie. All right. So up next, what do you do now that you've got your champions and your leadership group set? A good place to start next is to try and understand what it is your membership is looking for. So we've had chapters create surveys using something like SurveyMonkey to reach out to that email list and identify things like when and where are good places to meet, how frequently should we be meeting, and what are the best times. What types of events are people looking for? And this varies a lot from chapter to chapter, and also depending on what other things, professional organization activities are going on in your local area. Identify what your membership consists of in terms of professionals, consultants, government, students, advocates. Could be an opportunity to start thinking about topics for presentations or webinars, sessions that you might want to talk about. And then, as always, at every step, looking for people to volunteer either time, energy, or venues for future events. So then you've completed your survey. What do you do next? So the next thing lots of chapters are doing is get together, meeting, review the results, and develop a plan for the next year. Generally, it's prudent to set a recurring meeting date and time so that you can get into the habit and into some sort of consistency for moving forward. Coming up with a work plan can be really effective. Thinking through the things you want to accomplish in year one, month by month, or at whatever time period makes sense. And then you can decide if you want to send the schedule of chapter programming to what schedule you want to use to announce and broadcast events. So then, thinking about specific events, that we've had some examples from the chapters that are a little more established. People love walking and biking tours, getting out together to see something cool in your area, look at the latest facility, or finding someone within your membership or within your leadership group that has maybe some special access to a cool event. A cool location or thing in your city. Using bike share, getting out and getting people moving. That's some of the most popular things. You can also do project show and tell, where the city or the consultants worked on a project can showcase the project and that's of particular interest to your region. Partnering. Was someone starting to talk there?
No.
Oh, sorry. Partner with local universities or colleges to reach out to students. Students are often looking for ways to get engaged and find out what's going on too. And then general get-togethers, happy hours, or other meeting events are really what a lot of people are looking for with professional organizations. They come to professional organizations for the networking, and that is face-to-face meetings. And especially early on, it makes sense to partner with some of the more established local organizations, APA, ASCE, ASLA, ITE, YPT, all those acronyms. If anyone doesn't know those acronyms, let us know. Probably most of you do, though. And then the last on the list here is to do a group viewing of an APBP webinar. It's a cool way to get some face-to-face interaction during what's usually just a face-to-computer type of event. So as you know, probably APBP holds monthly webinars, and we can have you can have group viewings of those webinars at someone's location, whether it's a consultant or other public place.
I think the nice thing about that, you can actually couple things together. So, for example, I don't know if there's someone on the line from the Minnesota chapter, but what they do is they get together for the webinar and then also hold, I think, a meeting at that time. So, you don't have to put multiple things on your calendar. If you want to couple, your kind of steering committee meeting with an event, I think that's a way to kind of leverage everyone's time.
Yeah, good point. All right, so how do you involve national APBP, the APBP National Organization? So it's worth stating here that we are in support of local chapters. We think this is a real big opportunity for our organization, and to help both grow our membership and also make membership more useful and more beneficial to you all. So APBP is making available $100 every year for things like food and other communications. There's the web page that we talked about earlier on the page on the APBP website, and you also, of course, have access to our APBP listserv. We also are looking to plug your local membership into some of our other activities. So every other year we have the Professional Development Seminar, which is our big conference as an organization. And then in the intervening years, so the PDS happens in odd number years. In even number years, many of our members go to Pro Walk, Pro Bike. I'm sorry, I think it's Pro Walk, Pro Bike, Pro Place, which is actually next week in Vancouver this year. And we'll have our APBP annual meeting held there, for example. It's a great place to connect with national membership. Of course, you can get involved in committees like our membership committee. The committees are usually run by board members, but we have members who are, who volunteer to participate in the committees and help us advance our different initiatives. Maddie mentioned that actually this presentation was put together by one of our members, which we really appreciate. And where APBP is built around its membership, and so our webinars are given by APBP members oftentimes, and being connected through your local chapter to the national organization can both give us good content to promote and also give you and your membership opportunities to connect more broadly with the organization. So how else can you get support for your chapter? Mentioned this already before, but learning from other local chapters of professional organizations. We've listed the specific organizations several times, but they know your region and your area better than we can, of course, and they've figured out some lessons, I'm sure, in their years too. And to that end, it makes a lot of sense to partner with other organizations for your events. It's not a zero-sum game in this world. Professional organizations and professional development are sort of a net positive, and people are always looking for more and better things to go to. Feel free or try and take advantage of your membership and learn what they're looking for. We have a suggestion here to have a social hour without an agenda and just listen to what people are looking for. And take advantage of social media and listservs. Make sure you're getting, if you're hosting an event, if you're going through a lot of effort to put something together, that you are getting that promoted and having as much bang for the buck as you can. Don't be shy about over promoting. And with that, I'll leave on the screen here contact information for Lauren, who Lauren's the one who kicked off this call and will be helping be the point person for APBP in local chapters. And then feel free to reach out to other chapter leaders, which can all be found on the website, the web address listed below. So with that, I think I'll turn it back to Lauren to help us facilitate question and answer discussion. Lauren, are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had my phone still muted. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, thanks.
Great. Sorry about that. So thank you, Connor, for going through those slides. We did have a few quick questions that were submitted, so I'm going to run through those real quick. Allison had asked about the communications and including APBP National on all communications within the chapters, or is it really just, kind of the main announcement types of communications? And that's a great question. I know different chapters have different levels. Some are communicating with each other quite frequently, while others are not having regular communication within the chapter. So the intention there to include the info@apbp.org email address is really just to keep us looped into your, what kind of events you're having, your meetings, and things like that. So if you're sending out like a regular chapter newsletter or a chapter update, monthly or bi-monthly or whatever it may be, or if you're sending out invitations to your chapter members for, a meetup event or, a speaker or something like that, those are the types of communications that we'd like you to keep us looped in on. If you're just, chatting back and forth or, trying to decide on what to do next, like we don't need to be included in those kind of day-to-day types of conversations. But that's a really great question. And then Lynn also asked if we will be sending out the slides of this presentation, and yes, we will. We'll make them available on the website, and we'll send it out to all the chapter leaders to make sure you have all the information that you need. We are also recording this session, and we will make the recording available as well. So not only for those that were in attendance, but those that could not be in attendance, they'll have an opportunity to kind of listen in and see what they missed. So I didn't have any other questions submitted, so at this time, I will go ahead and open up the phone lines so that anyone who's on the phone can ask questions or share any ideas from your local chapter. So bear with me just for 1 second while I unmute everyone. I will ask if you talk, if you would mute yourself by clicking the green microphone in the top left corner. We're getting a lot of background noise and feedback, so I apologize. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone again, and if you'd like to ask a question, if you would use the, you can either use the chat function that's in your GoToWebinar little sidebar there and submit a question either to the group or to the entire audience, or you can use the raise your hand function, and I will unmute your line that way. Well, until we get any questions coming in, Maddie, do you want to maybe talk briefly about what kind of activities have been successful or well attended at your local chapter?
Oh, hi. Okay, sorry about that. Always a fun time working the mute button. So I think that the Southern California chapter, which I'm not on the steering committee of, but I think does a really great job at having kind of how they organize their chapter and activities. So let me just kind of tell you a little bit about how they organize themselves. So the Southern California chapter kind of at the beginning of the year, kind of pre-program what they wanted their activities to look like and at least kind of have some structure to them. So the kind of three, there's a quarterly speaker series, and that speaker series can also involve a tour. So for example, when the city of Santa Monica opened the first bike share in Southern California, we went out, we had a presentation at the at their kind of bike share headquarters from city staff, and then we went for a ride with the bikes. So we got to see how the bikes worked and see new facilities the city had been putting in. So those speaker series, which are also kind of field trips, are on a quarterly basis. And then on a monthly basis, there's monthly networking events, and those are in 3 different categories. So one is university-focused happy hours, and when we do those, we actually try to pick a location right near a university because we know that that's going to be the best if you can make it really close. And in Los Angeles, you know, kind of we have 3 kind of universities that are interested in this. So we'll pick a bar or location near that university. The second type of monthly networking event is kind of a special guest happy hour. So that's just, you know, a particular person that's a leader in the field or more is interested in this space will be in attendance. And then the last type of event that the chapter does are co-hosted happy hours. So that's what Connor talked about. A lot of times the chapter kind of piggybacks on something someone else is doing. So for example, our Department of Transportation in Los Angeles got a national APA planning award, so they had a party last week, and we just kind of piggyback onto that as the monthly event for August. It was actually at kind of the People Street party. So I think that that's really, if you can get ahead of yourself, or at least kind of say, these are the kind of buckets that you want the types of events to be in, then it gives you a bit of structure. So it's not like every month that you're looking at, well, what are we going to do? You kind of know what you're going towards. And that also helps to balance out throughout the year that you're kind of hitting a lot of different targets.
Great, thanks, Maddie. I had a question from Jacques Henriksen, who is had a question about how often would we suggest meeting when you're first getting the chapter started. So Connor or Maddie, do you want to provide any insight to that?
Yeah, I'll start, and if Connor has anything to add to that. I mean, there's 2 different I think types of meetings you want to think about when you're getting started. So definitely at the beginning, your steering committee should be meeting on a month. I would recommend on a monthly basis. And then in terms of like events that you're going to be inviting the rest of your chapter members to, I think on a quarterly basis is a good place to start. I wouldn't necessarily like lock yourself into just like every month right from the get-go, because you really want to, in the beginning, ensure that you're delivering programs that are well attended, well planned, and have great programming. So I think the kind of on the external events for chapters, kind of there's a less is more, and then as you kind of build up your chapter, you can get to a higher frequency. So the Southern California chapter is about its 3rd year now, and a lot of it was there was kind of the steering committee that had emerged, and it had a bit of problems kind of keeping the momentum. And then after one of the steering committee members was at the PDS last year, she just came back super enthusiastic about APBP. She got to meet a lot of the other members, and it was nice on our membership committee. We actually got to see each other face to face, and that really kind of spurred, you know, a really big effort to re-engage and invigorate. So now there kind of already was a group, so that's how we can go out to monthly events. But particularly in Southern California, you know, in LA, we're pretty spread out, so we're not really we try to rotate the locations of events because you're not really going to typically get the same people depending on the geography. So there's a long answer to say, you know, try to schedule monthly steering committee, and then I'd suggest starting with a quarterly kind of event for your members. But don't forget that the monthly webinars are kind of your kind of first thing you can do out of the gate. Just pick a location for that. That can also rotate, but it's sometimes nice just to know, okay, we know that the webinar is always on the third Wednesday of the month. Now I say that, I'm going to hopefully confirm that. And then, at the same location, or you can rotate that as well. Connor, how about, do you know from the Boston chapter about kind of regular frequency of meetings or events?
So I'm also not a member of the steering committee locally here, but the public-facing events, the external events are happening about, as you described, quarterly. And I would agree with your sort of breakdown between the steering committee meetings being more frequent. I think with these sorts of things, the trick is getting people motivated and getting them to actually do stuff. And meetings are a great way to hold people accountable because they see it coming in their calendar and they know that they were supposed to do X, Y, or Z by the time the meeting came around. So having those meetings more frequent just sort of accelerates the process and keeps the gas on and moving toward where you need to be to have the chapter established.
Great, thank you guys. I had kind of a follow-up question to that again, asking, is it important to have a board structure within the chapter, and what are the most important roles? I'll kick it off, and I'll let you two fill in. From APB National's perspective, we would like every chapter to have, at the very least, a chair and a co-chair as kind of the leaders of the chapter. They would also be kind of our go-to, the point person to interact with APBP and then help lead the chapter locally. I think some other chapters have established some other, kind of officer type of roles within their chapter. I would say just kind of as an as-needed basis. It's not necessarily a board structure or anything that formal, but at the very least a chair and a co-chair.
Yeah, I think that that's a great place to start to kind of help the accountability, to spread. If you have a third, I think 3 people is kind of ideal as the core group, just in terms of accountability and making sure that no one person is really sharing the burden. So just establishing like the roles of the people that are involved. So maybe if there's like a communications leader or something like that. So who's the person that's sending out the newsletter? Maybe if that's not the person that's organizing the events, for example. One thing that is nice on deciding if you'd like to have a chair is that for kind of professional development, I think it's nice if you can say, I'm the events coordinator or events chair. If you want to have more of a structure to really kind of have something that people can put on their resume, that's totally available to you if you'd like to do that. It's also nice if you have a university student that you can get that kind of does the university liaison maybe for the chapter. So there's kind of a minimum, which is chair and co-chair, and then it can keep going depending on what types of roles people have and who's really involved. So I don't know. Go ahead, Connor.
I don't have anything to add to that. That was everything I was going to say.
I had a question from Dennis, who's from one of the most recently formed chapters out in Arizona, and he asked if a local organization wants to donate money to the chapter, how can they do that? Because the chapters are not currently set up as their own entity, in the eyes of the IRS. The chapters are not set up as a 501c6 or a C3. Only APBP is set up in that way. And that's a great question, Dennis. And honestly, I don't know if I have a great answer for you at this time. It's kind of one of the things that we're looking at. The board for APBP recently engaged in some strategic planning and looking deeper at chapters and how they're structured is one of the things that came out of that, and that we're going to be focusing a little bit harder on. So, you know, in the past we have, if a chapter has collected money for an event, you know, it's something that would need to be sent into headquarters, you know, APBP National, and we can discuss the possibility of kind of earmarking that money specifically for your chapter, but it's not really something that's set yet. It's still kind of something we're figuring out. So if that kind of thing is coming in, or something that you're looking to do to reach out to local organizations to donate money to the chapter specifically, you know, shoot us an email and we can have a, you know, more in-depth conversation on how, you know, the best way to handle that.
Yeah, I think in general, it's usually if chapters want, it's easier to accept kind of in-kind donations. So maybe it's, you know, if there's an organization that wants to sponsor your event, they would cover the food for it, or they can pay for a bus, maybe if you're going around to different facilities. So if there can be, I think it's at this time, it's more simple if there's an organization that wants to donate, that they would just kind of donate the thing, or food or whatever it is, because as we get more evolved, we definitely need to look at how this is going to be structured. But there's kind of what we don't necessarily, what we need to figure out is kind of what fiduciary responsibilities kind of each chapter would have. And it gets more complicated if each chapter is having its own bank account. I mean, it has to do all of its own filing as well. So at this moment, that's why everything is centralized. And if you want to take donations, I'd recommend just trying to push that into having the sponsor pay for something directly rather than giving the chapter money.
But also, I think that Lauren started off by mentioning this is something sort of under consideration and in progress. So keep us posted on your experience with that. You know, if you have, you know, experience or opinions on how that might work, or what you're hoping to do, this is a evolving process, and you know, keep the line of communication open between us and your chapter as much as you can.
So we got another question. This is from Christy. She asks, how do we set up so we can host webinars for several cities around the state? Is there a discounted annual subscription for the chapter? Also, how are the continuing education units handled? That's a great question, Christy. APBP currently does offer a site license for each chapter so that they can host the webinar locally for their chapter members to attend. If you want to set up something where you've got multiple cities around your state participating, then we'd have to look at your chapter purchasing a multi-site license for the webinar, and there is a discount for that, so you're not paying the full, you know, price for every webinar. And there's a little bit of information on the website about that, or you can shoot us an email to the info and we can get you the details on that. And for all of our monthly webinars, we do offer the continuing education credit through APA, and we apply for that, and we, you know, provide a attendance certificate at the end of the webinar, as well as copies of a PDF version of the speaker's slides, and a link to view or listen to the recording of that webinar, so that you can send in that certificate, or I'm sorry, you can have a sign-in sheet for everyone that was in attendance at your location, and then you'll send that in to us.
And that's a great question about chapters getting a discount on site licenses. I've added that to our October meeting agenda for the membership committee, and that's definitely something we can consider going forward. Lauren, are there other questions?
Yeah, it looks like I've got two more. Allison asked, has anyone had good success with a particular membership recruitment event? We have had great success growing our chapter membership this year, but not getting people to sign up for APBP membership per se.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because that's kind of that's the direction as like an organization that's what we want. And there's this balance between we don't want necessarily to say to stifle chapter growth at the expense of like, well, everyone needs to be an APBP member. I think part of it is making sure that people understand kind of the value of an APBP membership. And one thing that we are doing, we just kind of reinstated or initiated the young professional membership, and the membership committee is creating some kind of postcards for that chapters can print and distribute at their events. So it kind of explains what are the membership benefits, and then what are the rates. It's targeted at the young professional membership since this is the newest category, but it'll have information about all of them. So yeah, I don't know if there's a particular thing that really has been a hook. I don't know. So the biggest kind of event I think that a chapter has done was the Boston chapter did a one-day conference, maybe 2015, 2014. And I mean, Connor, do you know about whether that really had a connection to converting people from non-members to APBP members?
If I recall correctly, and I might have this wrong, I think there was in the registration for the one-day conference, you could register, it was connected to membership and maybe discounted for APBP members. So whenever you have something that offers a discount for members, you boost membership. But it's like Maddie said, we don't want to create chapter events that are members only or reduce the appeal of local chapters by being too heavy-handed with that. So it's about finding the right balance.
Yeah. The other way that there was a YPT APA chapter event that was kind of like a holiday party, and if you were like, anyone could come to the event, but they had like some prize drawings, so they had gotten some things donated from different people, and only people that were members got to be in the prize drawing. And then for YPT, they just signed up people on the spot. So if you can kind of connect it to something else, or like, for example, right now we're doing a membership referral campaign, so it might be a great time for people that are APBP members in your chapter to try to engage at that time. That was another way to kind of say, well, what's kind of the added bonus, right? So whether it's a discount because it's tied to some other event, or it unlocks some opportunity like free stuff, which everyone loves. That, I mean, I personally think that APBP membership is a very high value, particularly for the price point that it comes at. But yeah, I think it's helpful to have some little extra incentive to do that.
So next question is from Carlos. He wanted to ask more about communication, and he's seen the options for the APBP wall that's within the chapter group on the website. We talked a little bit about the Google group, Facebook, Twitter, MailChimp. Do either of you want to talk about what are some of the most effective venues that you have seen for communicating between local chapter members?
Between different chapters?
I think between the chapter members themselves, between just the local chapter members.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, Maddie, if you had a specific idea. I think there's a lot of things that can work, and it's just about getting people all on the same page and getting familiar with using the same thing. And we're recommending MailChimp today because it helps. Well, it helps us, and it's a pretty effective tool. Maddie, I don't know if you want.
Yeah. So for the SoCal chapter, it was a Google group that has been, and then they were kind of asking because they wanted to snazz up and make their newsletters look a bit nicer. My apologies for my Outlook reminder coming in. So they really wanted some type of newsletter service. We noticed that the Minnesota chapter actually kind of piggybacked on a member's MailChimp. I think it's pretty good. We use that for our research center. So if you want to be able to kind of have something that looks a little nicer, the MailChimp is really nice. I'm not sure. I'd be curious on the free account, and maybe I'll have SoCal kind of test this out and report back, because at least on the paid account, which we have for my research center, you can see kind of who's opening. So you can really start to see who's actually engaging with your list, which is really nice. And a Google group doesn't really allow you to do that. So if you want kind of a better kind of data mining of your membership, MailChimp is a nice way. It has it does nice formatting. Like a lot of these things, it has some hiccups to it and can be a little annoying at times, but it's pretty straightforward, especially if you just make a template for like your newsletter or an event blast or something. And you can that's a little easier. Sometimes we just get into the weeds. There's like random spaces that appear that I spend hours losing trying to fix. So yeah, I think that's kind of, what's your preference, what's people's ability. We have tried out what didn't come up in the kind of communication, which is just like letting people know about stuff, is like how you actually get people to RSVP. Eventbrite is a nice way, also a free service. We've had a bit kind of a back and forth on whether to use Eventbrite or to use Facebook. I mean, there's only some people that have Facebook accounts, but you can make a public event on there. So I think it's a bit about kind of seeing what the comfort level is for your kind of steering committee. You can, in this kind of survey, when you ask people like, how would you prefer to find out about our events? That's another way to just kind of be delivering information in the way that people are most likely to receive it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Maddie. Carlos had even mentioned in his question that, this might be a good opportunity to ask that question in their survey. I will say that the chapter group pages on the website does have, it's called a wall. It's kind of similar to a Facebook, wall in that sense, in that you can post comments, and it's like a feed. You could essentially have some back and forth conversation in that way by posting on your group's wall. Within the group page as well, there is an opportunity there is a function to be able to email all group members. So, that's an option if you just want to shoot a quick email out to everyone. But yeah, like you said, if you're wanting to do some more formal invitations or announcement or regular newsletter types of things, MailChimp does work really well, and it's free.
The other thing to add about that on kind of events is that what we would love to do some kind of membership recruitment as kind of the headquarters. So after your events, particularly if you have an Eventbrite, so the Eventbrite page is really nice because people can just RSVP there. You can print it out, or you can even just like have it on a phone or a tablet at the event and check people in, so that you or kind of Lauren or someone isn't taking the time to like write down all of the names and kind of cipher through different people's handwriting. Because if you send after your event, if you want to send kind of the event attendance list, then we can start to kind of engage people to become members as well. So that's one advantage if you prefer to go with the Eventbrite route.
Well, Alison had a question about how would the postcard be made available to chapters, and I think, Maddie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the plan is to both create a PDF version that would be able to be downloaded and printed out, and then we may be able to do some printed copies as well, as the budget allows, to be able to ship some to chapters, maybe that request them for an upcoming event.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to send you a big box of mailings that sit in someone's office. So if no one on the steering committee kind of has an ability to print them, that's fine. Just let us know and how many you'd like to request, and we should be able to do a small run of them and ship them out.
I really just have one more question so far that have been submitted, and that was from Jacques, who is looking to start a chapter in the Chicagoland area. And he asks, are there any lessons learned that you wish you would have known when you were starting a new chapter?
Maybe if we want to actually, if someone wants to kind of put in the chat box a lesson learned, then Lauren can open up your line, so we're not going to complete open. I'd love to hear from other chapters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anything we didn't cover that is sort of in the back of your mind from your experience?
I think hopefully someone has some great lesson learned, but that the geography is important. As if you're thinking, this is Chicagoland. I know Chicago is also kind of a big region. Is to we have this kind of balance between wanting to have fairly tight-knit geographies for the chapters, but also not wanting like the one person in rural Ontario that kind of feels left out because kind of they're the link to it. So that's one thing to consider before starting a chapter is how kind of tight can you make the geography without leaving people out? So like, is it going to be Chicago? Maybe if you want like Urbana-Champaign, maybe that they could start kind of a student chapter or something like that, for example. So that's one thing. We understand that there is some limitations if you really want to get. I think there's a North Carolina chapter, so they're not exactly entirely. It's statewide rather than regional. But you do have to recognize the bigger the geography you go, the more you're going to have to probably spread out your events geographically as well.
One comment I had was from Allison, and she said, make an annual work plan. Allison, if you're still on the line, I have unmuted you if you want to just talk briefly to that and how that's worked for your chapter. She may not have her microphone set up. I'll let you send me a message. Oh,
yeah, was Allison on?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead, Allison.
Oh, this is Maddie.
Oh, I thought it was her. Well,
yeah, so
if she's able to get her microphone set up, we can unmute her again.
And we do have a template. The SoCal chapter, when they created their work plan, they shared that. So if we could actually, when we send out the link to the recording and the slides from this, we'll actually just include that work plan template because it's a great place to start.
Great. And then Megan had mentioned it's helpful to designate champions for events or initiatives on the steering committee so that you can make sure that people help to take on a part of the work. She said that's worked well in DC, and they designate those champions in the annual work plan brainstorm session. Great idea.
Yeah, huge part of this is accountability among your steering committee members.
Well, we're approaching our hour mark, so I'd like to wrap up. If anyone else has any last-minute questions or comments or ideas they want to share from their local chapter, go ahead and submit those questions quickly now. Otherwise, we'll wrap up in just a minute or two. I want to, while we wait to see if anything else comes in, I just want to thank everyone who was able to attend and kind of bearing with us a little bit on the technology side as we're trying to let everyone talk and chime in without having all that feedback when we open the lines up. So, Maddie or Connor, do you have any last-minute comments before we wrap up today?
I just want to say thank you all. Echo Lauren's point that and hopefully many of you will get to meet each other and engage in Vancouver next week. Please, if you're there, we'd love for you to attend the annual meeting. Gives you a sense of what's going on. And then a plug for our committee. Our next committee meeting, we meet on the second Tuesday of every month at this time, so noon Pacific. And just let me know if you'd like to be involved in that. But there's tons of different ways to get involved in APBP and other committees as well. And we'd love for more engagement. Connor, any closing remarks?
I can't top that. No, thanks everyone for participating. And yeah, looking forward to hearing about your experiences and learning more lessons.
Yes, and Connor, you will be in Vancouver,
yes.
Correct? Okay.
I'll be at the annual meeting, which is at 6:30, I think, on Monday. Is that right, Lauren?
Yes, I believe so.
Great.
Okay.
So if you have questions, grab Connor's here in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We will, once the recording has been completed, we will send it out, as well as the slides and some of the other things that we talked about today. So it'll be made available for all the chapter leaders. So thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lauren.